Well, thanks very much for coming back.
Yeah.
Appreciate it for round two. So I think today we want to focus really on cyber insurance. And I suppose it would be a good idea to introduce yourselves first. So maybe, Ollie, if you go first.
Yeah, sure. So, Ollie Bilham, I'm Channel Account Manager for Watchguard, covering the North region.
I'm Josh Bates. I'm a legal director at a firm called O'Connors that Medhurst actually support. We carry on corporate work, commercial work, insurance and regulatory. And in that regulatory space, that's where I neatly sit as a financial services regulatory lawyer. What I want to ask you, because I've got a view about it, but what is the level of sophistication now amongst bad actors or threat actors in the cyberspace? Because I think there's probably a misconception, definitely in the media and sort of film and television, that the kind of these anarchistic kids in their bedroom that are just sort of want to see the world burn, or they've got some sort of geopolitical axe to grind.
Yeah.
What kind of things do you see now in terms of sophistication of bad actors?
Well, I think there's money in it, and that is the big driver, isn't it? We used to have people that would wade into a bank and hold a bank up, and now people don't need to do that anymore. The criminal that is out there can wade a fairly sophisticated attack on a business without actually getting off their chair, and we are seeing all sorts of different threat organisations, dark web type activity, whereby even somebody who knows nothing about a cyber attack can employ another agency to launch that attack for them on a specific targeted business. We've seen it with. It's happened just with broken down relationships in companies, where we've had a client who's had somebody wage cyber warfare. I would have to say it was a DDoS attack, massive attack on them because of a broken down relationship. Mm-hmm. So it is very simple now to be able to get hold of these tools and use them, and therefore I guess cyber insurance is incredibly important, because you don't know where, when, how it's going to come. The important thing is to gear yourself up for it, to prevent that from happening in the first place by using all of the security tools and the Watchguard products that we've talked about previously. Well, we certainly in that event gathered lots of logs from Watchguard firewalls with the attack, and the police were involved, and they gathered that information from us, and the guy has actually gone to prison, so it was a win. But obviously it wasn't the only attack that he was involved in, and I guess he made a career out of it. And that's the frightening thing, isn't it, really, is that people are making significant amounts of money out of it, and therefore the problem will only get worse. It won't get better, unfortunately. We've certainly seen a lot of interest from our clients. We're probably getting one every few weeks where a client will say to us, I've got this cyber insurance questionnaire that I need to fill out. What have I got? And it's a series of acronyms that they have to then try and understand and tick and all the rest of it. And of course it's completely alien to most people who are dealing with this. It might be an office manager or something of that description. So I guess cyber insurance has seen a massive rise in cyber insurance, and this is your world, Josh. So, and Josh, I suppose your role maybe didn't exist 10 years ago, or was of a totally different.
So cyber insurance was probably in its infancy, teenage sort of stage. I guess it's still getting there, because you're getting, depending on your underwriter, a difference in proposal forms that get issued to insureds or would-be insureds. You're getting a different type of policy wording. That standardisation is starting to happen, and they're getting a bit more standardised, but there's still differences. And then, before now, you used to have silent cyber, so some cyber risks might have carried on a property casualty policy, for example, without you knowing it, but you've managed to fudge the loss in through one of those items of cover. And so, my role probably didn't exist, or if it did, it was very much city or US based, probably where a lot of the policies were taken up first. There's been a knowledge campaign and a greater awareness now amongst SMEs and SME boards, C-suites of SMEs about the cyber risk, but I don't think it's there entirely. I think it's not a constant board agenda, or if it is, it's very, it's okay, we've got the MSP, we've got the support, we've got this, we've got that, and it's not at that granular level. Like you said, the analogy is people always were worried about fires to the building, but not, worried about the tangible, but not so much the intangible, whereas actually a lot of the value is now placed in the intangible, so we really need to be more concerned about that.
I think where you started there with the questionnaire, we call that a prop form, a proposal form. That's probably the best place to start, because that's the inception or the renewal of the policy, and that's really where a lot of things can go wrong, I guess, if you fill out that form incorrectly. So having someone that can translate the acronyms into plain English. So my job as always to translate the policy wording, the legalese, and tell you in coordination with the broker where you have cover, where you don't, what you have to do, and where there might be gaps. The prop form is really helpful. One, I guess, is a benchmarking tool for insureds to say, right, well, this is at a minimum the things that an insurer or the markets require to get you cover, which naturally then increases your cyber hygiene slightly, because you're like, okay, well, I'm at the de minimis level. But two, it's important because if you fail what we call to present that risk, you've got an obligation as a commercial insurer to fairly present the risk to the insurer. And what that means is giving them all of the material circumstances about that risk. So about your networks, about the software you use, about the people, about the training you've done. If you fail to do that, there is the risk that the insurer, on the happening of a claim, will refuse to indemnify you, will say, actually, that relates to something you didn't tell us at inception or renewal, and our statutory remedies are to do, usually they'll avoid the claim. They may avoid the claim, cancel the policy and keep the premium if the breach was deliberate and reckless. More often than not, it's going to be avoiding the claim. At the lesser end, they may say, okay, well, actually, we would have put in these terms, normally an exclusion, and we'll reduce the policy, the payout, in a proportionate amount that we would have increased the premium. So there's like a sort of a bit of a quid pro quo at the back end. So getting that right is fundamental. Whereas the insured now, they're in a slightly better world through bits of legislation, the Insurance Act 2015 mainly. Before that, legislation was very pro-insurer, and we're talking about Marine Insurance Act, I think, of 1906. So the birthplace of insurance, on insuring naval or maritime vessels, down in Lloyd's of London. That's where it all started. Now developed into what we've got now. But anyway, so it was always pro-insurer. And the reason why I mention this is that usually before the Insurance Act, those prop forms used to be used as a basis of cover, especially in relation to warranties. So, and it could even be something daft as your practicing address. If you'd failed to complete that properly, they'd cover. Now it's more suspensive. So let's take those tick box exercises. Let's say it's MFA, which is seemed to be a big thing for carriers at one point and still is. You're warranting that you use MFA, and if you don't, or if it's down, or if it's not been installed properly or patched, cover is suspended for the period where you're not complying with that warranty. So the policy's not totally gone, but it's there. So I just think it's really important that insureds have at that really crucial stage of renewal
Ideally before, don't just speak to someone like you. Like, hey, we're gonna, we need to take this policy out today. Can you come and, let's.
That's usually what you get.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Give us some time. Speak to your MSP. Ideally, if you've got the budget, bring in a lawyer to come in, an insurance lawyer, not just anyone. Sorry, not just any old lawyer, an insurance lawyer to advise you on the policy wording, and use a good broker. You may want to hive up your broking so that you depending on who you're with, so that you've got your other general insurance package handled by broker A, but a specialist cyber broker, because they'll understand the risk, they understand the cyber landscape more than your generalist, but you may see that it's wrapped up in your combined commercial, those kinds of things, but more often it's a bespoke policy, and get people involved. I think it's worth the investment because it really bites when you have a claim and you need to know what you need to do there. The benefit of the policy, right? So let's say we've done all that, we've got it in place. The benefit really is then when, like most insurances, when you have a claim. What does a cyber insurance policy mainly do? It's got lots of lines of cover in there, but I think if you look at the macro, the real benefit is business interruptions loss coverage. So for your downtime, we'll pay you the business interruptions loss, however they calculate and define that in the policy, and getting you back on your feet, getting the forensic guys in to find out what happened, restore your data, get your systems back up and running, and if it's a piece of ransomware, then maybe even pay that ransom and deal with all that, because there'll be things in there that you won't have thought about as a business. For example, ransomware being paid in a form of cryptocurrency. Right. Most businesses won't have a wallet. No. Hot or cold, and they won't know what a wallet is, other than the one that we all keep. I don't keep mine in my back pocket anymore. But and that, again, they'll step in there and help sort that out. And I think that's the real benefit, because it hurts really when a business is down, it cannot trade. So being able to restore and recover and rebuild that data is really key. I think we touched on this in the first session, though. It's not, the transfer of risk shouldn't be something that you place whole reliance on. You have to have good cyber hygiene before that to warrant having the policy, and it's really just a backstop. Don't buy it and think, hey, great, I've got cyber insurance, that's great.
The two go hand in hand, really.
Massively, like with any insurance policy, it is always about risk mitigation and risk transfer working together, risk management.
So we've seen the policies change over a bit of time, haven't we? They used to be very much part of that combined office policy, and now they've separated into their own policy, and I presume the expense of that policy is now gone up, and continues to rise as the threat landscape emerges.
So you're right. We used to have it in the combined office. You even used to have a thing called silent cyber, so cyber-related losses would be picked up by other bits of cover. It's now deviated into its own individual policy. You can get off-the-shelf ones that won't be very good. And I would probably, I'd definitely encourage people not to look at those. Then you have to go through a broker and get a decent policy, and yes, you'll pay pretty high premium, unfortunately, for it. Driven by several things. I think there's not been a softening, I would think, of the cyber market recently. I think it's sort of plateaued in relation to premium and policy terms. Several factors there, but I think it's a harmonisation of policy wordings, getting closer to consistency across proposal forms, although some insurers will have very different questions to others, and an increase of that benchmarking by insurers, of putting in the things that they need to actually almost as the barrier of entry to cover in relation to sort of cyber hygiene, systems and controls, preventative measures, that perimeter, that sort of detection.
We've seen those tick boxes, if you like, increase over the last few years, and now we're on to page 2 of what people have got and what they haven't, and the scans they're running, and all this kind of thing. Have you got some idea of what the effect of not being able to comply to some of those standards?
I think primarily it might be a barrier to cover. So the insurer might say, this is totally out of appetite unless you have these things, so go away and sort it out, or you can't get cover with me. If they are still willing to offer you policy terms, it will probably have an effect on your premium and the terms that are offered. You may find the policy is littered with exclusions for certain things. I don't know, let's take a really arbitrary, let's say you didn't have sort of a phishing detection software. The insurer may say, okay, well, I'm going to exclude, there's probably an exclusion there anyway, but spear phishing attacks. I'm going to definitely exclude that because you don't have anything in there to try and manage that risk.
It's common.
It's pretty high.
It's a great policy.
So I appreciate it's an expense, but I think it's a worthwhile expense for businesses. Because it's a change in that mindset of insurance has always been looking after the tangible, but businesses have been placing less value in the tangible and more in the intangible or the digital. But we're largely underinsured in that space because we've all been there, right? The FD's going through the insurances. You've got to have, I've got to have EL. Probably should have PL. Okay, I'm a professional. I've got PI, especially if you're a solicitor. I've got to have PI. I go all the way down. DNO, cyber insurance. Well, X per year. No, we don't need that. Just get rid of that one. Can't afford that. It's probably the one you really should be sticking towards the top of the list, in my view.
And is the type of data that clients are storing a factor in the premium and cover that people have? So if you are storing consumer data or rather than just business data or what have you, is that a factor in premiums?
That's one of the lines of cover. Would be the data protection, the GDPR piece, or DPL. It's called data protection legislation because it's sort of we've got a potential divergence of UK GDPR and EU, and then if you're international as well. It is certainly for a consumer-facing law firm. You're taking on a lot of personal data. You've got regulatory obligations anyway if you're a UK law firm to keep everything confidential. But suppose you're one of those, a personal injury law firm, good example. Lots of sensitive personal data. You're receiving medical records. You're going to get a medical report about this person. That might involve some really quite close, sensitive sort of stuff around psychological injuries, injury history, that kind of thing. That if that gets out beyond your four walls, it's going to sound in some heavyweight regulatory fines and potential action by your clients against you. So it is a big part of the policy, and it covers you for those sort of defence costs and potentially some of the regulatory fines. What kind of things do you see now in terms of sophistication of bad actors?
We've seen most recently with Watchguard products evolve into that SOC space, Security Operations Centre space, where a business like Medhurst, we're doing an awful lot of different IT tasks, security being very central to what we're doing, but we had to make a decision really as to whether we started to invest in a security operations centre, a 24/7 monitored system, whether we outsourced that, whether we did that internally. It was going to become incredibly expensive, and therefore incredibly expensive to our clients. So, and literally at the same time, I went to a Watchguard conference, and they announced that they were putting together their own security operations centre. Managed detect and response is the product that it's called, but it allows them then to piece together parts of attacks, doesn't it, Ollie? That may get missed or treated with less severity than without that sort of human involvement. I don't know if you want to sort of mention a bit more about that.
Yeah. So for those of you that don't know kind of what a SOC is, we're talking a lot of acronyms here as the industry dictates. That's a security operations centre, which is genuine people in a centre somewhere providing 24/7 vigilance of your networks and the data and the kind of intelligence that they see. And what that actually means is there's various people and various eyes looking at your customer's network and our MSP's networks to actually fully and deeper understand what is going on there. So, Alice, I know we spoke previously, we do this kind of scoring mechanism where obviously higher threats that our team determine are dealt with, and that would often mean an immediate remediation or deeper investigation, but we also score other things that happen in that network. And the beauty of kind of MDR and having access to that team is they're seeing everything. So if they're seeing constant, 6s and 7s over a period of time and it doesn't make much sense, that's a flag for them. They can say, what is going on here? We're having these repeated kind of alerts. Somebody needs to take a look at this. Whereas if this was just left to a customer who, again, we've spoken about, have limited IT resource, if it's not a red flag, they're just going to ignore and look at it on a weekly basis. Let's just check under the hood here, what's going on. And if that happens, I don't even think that does across the wider base. You probably know that more than me with customers.
No, well, I think what we're describing here is an enterprise service, really, that, big corporates will have their own security operations centre.
They do, yeah.
But now we're able to provide this to much smaller businesses.
Absolutely.
In fact, the smallest business.
Yep.
Just a one-man band can benefit from that MDR monitoring.
Yep.
So, it's like a lot of things that Watchguard do is they're providing those enterprise level services, but squeezing them into that lower SME type market.
Yeah, it's such an important piece now to have 24/7 cover.
Yeah,
in-depth cover and the ability to respond quickly and remediate. So I get that the premiums are high, but I do think it's having a big impact on shaping the behaviour in the security space and what customers need to do. So it's a good thing that it's becoming more kind of relevant in the UK market.
Yeah, it's another checkpoint for businesses, isn't it, really, to say, and if they do consciously decide not to have it, then, at least they've gone through the process of analysing it.
In essence, the questionnaire that we started off with, the inception point, is a drop in the ocean of the amount of stuff actually required.
It's the tech piece, it's the contracts piece, and it's the insurance piece, and it's all got it's the trifecta, hasn't it? It's all got to sort of blend nicely together. And what you're trying to do is ensure that there's as little light passing through them as possible.
Yes.
Let's remove as many gaps as we can.
Yeah.
And you can only do that, in my view, with the blend of the vendor, the MSP, the broker, and the lawyer, and the customer, all working together to understand the business risks.
That's the ticket.
Because it's asking legal firms to do that due diligence on their providers that they would be encouraging their clients to do in a transaction or what have you.
If you do the corporate transaction, you do loads of DD. I can guarantee, disparage a lot of corporate lawyers here, but no one thinks about the cyber risk in that transaction, or the cyber hygiene of the target. If you're on the buy side, what does it look like? Everyone asks some general GDPR questions in a due diligence questionnaire. How have you complied with that? Is there any risk there? And a couple it seems fine. They've got a privacy policy, so that's fine. But I guess there's inherent risk in that, because if you stick things in a VDR, another acronym for you there, in a data room,
How secure is that? Who's done the security and testing or the due diligence on that?
Yeah.
Can you even do that from a GDPR perspective? Have you told your clients that, hey, if we get bought, we may share we may process your personal data for the purposes of an acquisition or a sale, as the case may be?
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's just loads of risk in that transaction that to use that as the analogy, people don't even think about. But again, it's becoming more present and can really, really sound in some fines and damages.
Well, thanks very much for your time again.
My
Really
pleasure.
appreciate it. I think it's been a really useful discussion again. I guess the key takeaways for me really are that you've got to have partners that are very knowledgeable in the space that we're working in, whether that's a lawyer advising on the insurance policies, making sure you've got the right technology in place, trying not to have any gaps there. See those gaps before you're committing to policies, because you can come foul of it when you need to.
You need the right delivery team, and that comprises many specialisms.
Yes, yeah. And I guess it's making sure that we've got the right IT products to back those policies up, ensuring that they are installed correctly, configured correctly, reporting correctly, as we state in those insurance policies, to ensure that that clients are protected. In the event that the worst should happen, but obviously prevention is better than cure.
Yep.
And that's what we would all advocate, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Alex.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ollie.
Cheers.